Sadly, just as I was making this video, it came out that the Xbox version has been delayed alongside the Windows 10 version. I will be reporting on that as we go along here. Fingers crossed for a very short delay. What's going on, everyone? My name's Tenebris, and this is the second part of the patch notes for the New Dawn update. We've already covered the new features, and this time we'll be discussing the bug fixes. Boasting a massive 82 fixes in the update, and likely a ton of under-the-hood tweaking as we see in our updates here in Generation 0. The team has done a massive effort of bug fixes, and even though it's not in an entirely perfect state, I doubt we'll see Generation 0 perfected until we get a few more years down the road here, so every step until that point matters. A huge amount of these are community-requested fixes, so if there's anything you've been looking forward to seeing fixed, please stay tuned throughout this video. Now, let's get into these bug fixes. In order to save myself just a bit of editing time, you guys are going to get some stock footage of the new locations here in the update while I read through these bug fixes. If you'd like to read through them along the way, the link to that will be down in the description below. So firstly, for bug fixes, in our General tab, they fixed an issue with crossplay between Windows 10 users, Game Pass included, and Xbox users having different versions of the game. These versions now match, and crossplay should now function properly. This was previously causing some users to crash when switching between platforms on the same save file. Sadly, we won't know the effectiveness of this fix until we see the update actually properly come out on Xbox and Windows 10, so again, fingers crossed that that happens very soon. For animation, art, and audio, the first community-reported fix, they fixed an issue while a player used ADS or iron sights with an experimental shotgun while wearing the ecto-scientist gloves, which resulted in a black screen. Next up, they fixed an issue where reload input was ignored during ADS and iron sights. Next, they fixed an issue where player characters would go from crouching to standing to prone when trying to prone from a crouch state while utilizing a controller. They fixed an issue where no sound was played when completing assignments. They fixed an issue with opening and closing sounds sometimes being heard when moving after having interacted with a loot container. They fixed an issue where the visual highlight around the resistance building gate could be seen far into the ground. Next up, they fixed an issue in multiplayer where player character arms would contort while sprinting with the bow equipped if they have maxed out running speed. They fixed an issue where the resistance banner also had a security fence pylon stuck inside of it. And then lastly, they fixed an issue where too many electrical arcs from shock ammo in multiplayer were being drawn out. For combat, weapons, and equipment, another community reported fix here. They fixed an issue where guns were sometimes unreloadable after loading into the game. Then they fixed an issue in multiplayer where the experimental sledgehammer charge attack explosion appeared twice for other players. They fixed an issue with grenades where they would fall very slowly when you toss them against a wall. They fixed an issue where a game host wouldn't take damage from explosions, but the client does. They fixed an issue in multiplayer where reclaimed arrows would not disappear for other players. They fixed an issue with the resistance bow where an attached scope can use thermal night vision attachments. That sucks. That was really fun. Oh, bummer. And then next up, they fixed an issue in multiplayer where field radios could teleport players into the air when used for the first time. For crashes and performance, they fixed an issue where loading time was more than twice as long when fast traveling to Ostervik compared to other areas, and that's actually a really awesome fix to see. They fixed a crash where the client could crash when the host died and respawned during a base assault. They fixed an issue where the host could crash when teleporting away from a base assault after being killed. Next up, they fixed a crash in multiplayer defense mode that would occur at Guard Brigade, the control point. They fixed a crash that would sometimes occur after dying in combat during single player. They fixed a crash that could occur while shooting Phoenix command centers during base assaults. They fixed a crash that could occur during multiplayer for the guest client when they opened their map after fast traveling. They fixed a crash that could occur when teleporting away from the host of a multiplayer session during a fight. They fixed a crash where a multiplayer host could crash after a guest client ran into arc tethers from the experimental shock ammo. The next up is a community reported fix. They fixed an issue on PS4 where the game could crash and corrupt saved game data upon reaching the main menu. Next up, they fixed a crash during multiplayer where the host could crash when opening the map. And lastly, they fixed a crash where a player could crash when idling in the main menu after leaving a multiplayer game. The PS4 fix is an absolutely massive one. I know a ton of folks were affected by that, so it's really good to see that fix come out. For machines, they fixed an issue in multiplayer where a Class D tank or an Apocalypse tank cluster mines did not trigger correctly and can't be shot. Then they fixed an issue in single player where runners were ignoring being attacked with melee weapons. They fixed an issue in multiplayer where the Reaper didn't die after its thermobaric explosion. They fixed an issue where the bloom effect on the red lights for machines are like way too bright. They fixed an issue where machines could spawn and get stuck between containers and unlootable tank corpses. And then lastly, they fixed an issue where Hunter's sniper laser pointer aimed at the ground when targeting other machines. Then for missions, they fixed an issue with Horde mode, where enemies could spawn inside of a base perimeter, which kind of explains why certain base defenses were really difficult there. They fixed an issue with Horde mode, where hunters could become passive after killing a player. They fixed an issue during Horde mode, where the tank could ignore player attacks on select control points. They fixed an issue during base assaults, where the Phoenix Command Center did not spawn any enemies or artillery during the first wave after damaging it. They fixed an issue where Phoenix base turrets could see players through walls and try to shoot at them during base assaults. They fixed an issue in Horde mode during multiplayer where players could still see the base defense interaction prompts after the Resistance base was destroyed. They fixed an issue with Horde mode where hunters with only melee weapons could become passive after killing the player. They fixed some issues where the voiceover of Kyle would play too early during some parts of missions that included him. They fixed an issue during base assault where mines inside of Phoenix bases could spawn in the ground, making them impossible to detonate by shooting them. And then lastly, they fixed an issue with some roaming enemies close to the Siog control point, where they would disrupt a base defense mission if they were wandering by. That control point is pronounced Huaglimpton. Never would have guessed that. Anyway, moving on to the UI. This is where we got a ton of fixes. A lot of community reported fixes as well. So first up here is a community reported fix. They fixed an issue where the longest fight and total time spent in combat stats did not function correctly. Then they fixed an issue where the UI showed the resistance flamethrower of the highest quality did less damage than lesser quality flamethrowers. They fixed an issue where inventory sorting could not sort alphabetically inside the Plundra. They fixed an issue with the inventory sorting where filtering ammo type was empty when there was no matching ammo to your weapon. They fixed an issue with inventory sorting when filtering attachments by type or equipped items that weren't listed in alphabetical order. They fixed an issue where Phoenix control points and base defense missions were not found in locations, missions, map filters. They fixed an issue where label filtering inside map filters had no icon. They fixed an issue where the shortcut to unfavorite an item stays favorite inside the map favorites tab, filter tab. They fixed an issue where resistance home bases were not showing on the player's compass. Then they fixed an issue with the base assault in multiplayer where icons on the map did not update for players when Phoenix bases leveled up. Then they fixed an issue where resistance control point base icons were not always displayed on the compass. Then they fixed an issue where the region stats were not showing properly with regions that had 0 threat. Community reported fix. They fixed an issue where challenges would reset when creating a new character. This unfortunately does not restore lost progress or work retroactively. So my dudes out there that got hit by this bug, it's really unfortunate, but you can be certain that it will not happen again. Next up, for another community reported fix, they fixed an issue where the flamethrower was being displayed as equipped after dropping it. Another community report, they fixed an issue where DLC items duplicated in the Plundra for some players. Next up, they fixed an issue where side mission icons would show as main mission icons on the map. They fixed an issue where region stats would reset when hovering close to the player's icon on the map. They fixed an issue where players could not interact with things while a read more tutorial was on the screen. And then lastly, they fixed an issue with the slot memory for the weapon wheel, where it would not remember where items were placed if they were previously depleted. They should now repopulate if the slot has not been replaced with something else. And lastly, for the world here, they fixed an issue where fast traveling away, then back to a player, would cause the fast traveling player to loop or play an odd animation until re-equipping a weapon or items. So we won't see a kind of weapon juggling thing happen anymore in multiplayer, which is a bummer. The next one is a community reported fix. They fixed an issue where Moscar's resistance camp is still attacked by Phoenix missiles after completing the Phoenix Rising DLC. Another bummer. Dang it, man. Some bugs are nice, dude. Next up, they fixed an issue where after creating a new character, you'll spawn in the safe house where your previous character was saved, and your previous character will end up in the starting area. Then they fixed an issue with floating reeds off at Arkelstorp. They fixed an issue with reeds clipping into the bridge near Pashkalam. They fixed an issue where players could get stuck between the wooden crates at Stemnira Brigade. They fixed an issue where Bergram Bjornen Bunker was clipping through the fence on interaction. They fixed an issue where the text Kabelstop was floating in the air above the street cabinet at the beginning of the game. A community reported fix. They fixed an issue with the Soviet hovercraft where collisions on doors were missing. They fixed an issue where the player was able to teleport within the Ostermark control point by walking into the truck. They fixed an issue with the base assault where players could get stuck under the command center if proning below the Phoenix control point when it was destroyed. They fixed an issue with a floating medkit in the bathroom of Bjerknes Hunter's cabin. They fixed an issue where players could get stuck in a respawning loop after falling into water. They fixed an issue where 2 cars near Saltham Safe House had see-through hoods. They fixed an issue in multiplayer base building where dismantling a building at your base may not free all build tiles. And then they fixed an issue with some floating foliage by the water at the IGA gas facility. And then lastly, they fixed an issue with rocks clipping with a bridge at Brevikin camping in the South Coast region. Now for some known issues and some things to just be aware of as a player that will be fixed hopefully in the near future. There is currently an issue where the placement of a wall at the western border and Storskogen causes game saves to become corrupted. So essentially just don't build at Storskogen until this gets fixed. Deployable turrets textures appear buggy when viewing it in the menu, but appears as expected when placed out in the world. Next up, a community reported issue. Ticks can occasionally spawn infinitely from hunter corpses in Ostervik and attack other machines. During multiplayer, other players can occasionally be observed as falling through the ground repeatedly from the client's perspective. A community reported issue, a big rock clipping into the stairs near Katkaret. Collisions on a wall near Ibbeholmen Church are not fully accurate. And then lastly, rivals can sometimes move to other regions and show the incorrect region on the UI, another community reported issue. So, a pretty crazy amount of bugs squashed in this update, and I really enjoyed actually breaking up the patch notes from the bug fixes here, so I think that this is going to be an approach that I'm going to take moving onwards with Generation Zero, separating the bug fixes so I can really highlight them and really take my time to talk about them and have my commentary if I need to. Hopefully, there have been a bunch of bugs that you were looking forward to being fixed that got fixed in this update, and maybe there's a bit of solace knowing some of the known issues. But just as I wrap up the video here, I would just like to say, great job, team. Keep up the continued effort that you've been showing this year. You're doing a fantastic job fixing Generation Zero and moving it forwards towards its fullest potential here. But, my dudes, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Hopefully you're all enjoying the New Dawn update, and I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, peace.